white elephants scattered all over African countries. We need to try and look at how that can be prevented. Then the next reason why we need FSM is actually two FSM policies that we need to try and create the enabling environment to help us move forward. Not just for non-sewerage sanitation, but we look at it in a way from how do we provide services to the massive number of our population that are actually using non-sewerage sanitation, because that's what we have now, and that's what we need to work with. And then go incrementally to where most of us and most of our politicians want to be, which is to get everybody connected. That time will come, but it's not now. I don't think it's in the next 10 to 20 years. So we need to work with what we have. And what that policy will help us to do is to start to look at who is actually responsible for sanitation. And I thought this cartoon really clarifies it well. And that's the poor sanitation, the poor sister of water. You have the ministry, you have the mayors, everyone is going, take cash, it's your responsibility, not mine. And amongst other things is, this is 2015, that was our MDGs. And they're saying services will come, you will get it by 2015. Now we're telling the same little boy here, when he's already a teenager, you will get it by 2030. We don't want him to get to be like that. And we're still saying, giving the same deadlines. So that's one of the things why we thought having a clear FSM policy or sanitation policy that includes FSM will help to clarify some of this. What do we know about the policy landscapes in Africa? I know that maybe you expected me to answer some of these questions, but from what you saw, I'm from Nigeria, and we usually answer questions with questions. So I thought I'd throw back the questions to you and say, what do you know about the African landscape? But the thing is that all of us will be able to answer that question by answering some of these sub-questions. So do sanitation policies exist? The ones that exist, do they have FSM? We all know the answer. Are services provided by these policies, and are they actually budgeted and implemented? If you do a quick survey of African countries that have sanitation policies, you might say, one person will give you a different data, another person gives you a different data. That's because those policies were never, if you like, consultative in process. In the development, it's all done by consultants, and it's sitting somewhere in someone's shelf, and it's never been approved. Now, if you look at the features of FSM, what should be in it? In an FSM policy guideline, AMCAL, in collaboration with CWSC, which I'm going to talk about later, and WHO GLASS, is trying to look at this at the moment. But if you look at an FSM policy, it should have four components to it, and that would include the core principles. And by these core principles, it means some of the key principles that most countries must endeavor to have in their sanitation policies to make sure that it's gearing towards providing that sanitation for all by 2030. And then there is a component of all the elements that should be there, and then it has to have a strategy and plans for implementing those policies. And then it needs to clarify a process that needs to be used to develop the policy so that everybody knows about it. And what are those core principles? There are about 5 to 6 that I'm thinking of, but I think this ones here kind of summarizes the core principles that should be in an FSM policy. One of them is inclusivity and equity, that we should make sure that the sanitation we're doing is inclusive. If we build a wastewater treatment plant for millions of dollars and it only serves 2% of the capital city, that is not inclusive and that is not equitable because it's not covering the entire population. And also, sanitation should be safely managed across the chain. So if we look at rural sanitation, we should not only concentrate on technologies that either deal with the platform or deal with the slabs. We need to make sure that we think ahead across the value chain. Whatever we're providing, do we have the opportunity or does it allow us to take it to the end, which is for treatment and reuse? And then we need to also show that there's political will and accountability within that core principle. So the government needs to demonstrate that they're really interested in resolving this issue of sanitation. So there needs to be clarity on who is accountable to who and for what. So even if it's more than one ministry involved in sanitation, what are their clear roles and what are the boundaries? Where does it end and where does it stop? And then we also need to be looking at diverse and innovative technologies. So we don't go with the fashion. We go with what supports safely managed sanitation up to the end. So when we're setting standards, when governments are setting standards for sanitation, they don't say, okay, our new policy is that all toilets has to be EcoSan, or all toilets has to be urine diversion, but to look at it in a more progressive manner and say, we want toilets with feature 1, 2, 3, 4. And the objective is that we want to make sure that it's safely managed to the end. And what are some of the elements that we would like to see in any policy that needs to be developed for FSM? We need to see that there are clear laws to actually where all the other policies needs to be embedded on. Because for a policy, for people to be held accountable for what they're doing, there needs to be a law to justify that. And at the moment, we don't know, some of those laws are kind of hidden in other laws, building codes, health act, environment act. We need to make sure that that law, whatever exists, those laws exist in a country, is packaged in a way that everybody understands these are the existing laws, and therefore these policies is based on these laws that are existing. And if they're not existing, to look at what kind of laws do we need to establish to make sure that whatever policy we have is based on existing laws. And then there needs to be a direction given in the policy about integrated planning. So sometimes you see policies for urban improvement programs or urban policy, and it completely separates sanitation. So everybody's going on a parallel line. Drain improvement, waterworks improvement, overflow, but sanitation is kind of running on its own. To see that when plans are being made, that it's an integrated plan to see how everything fits together. Then there needs to be clear financing models and mechanisms, both at the national, the state level where there is state, or the regional level, at the local government level, at the various levels of government, clarifying who funds what and at what level. We need to also see the kind of areas, definition of what can the private sector fund, where do we bring them in? And then we also need to talk about safely managed sanitation service delivery. The policy should outline what does it mean by safely managed sanitation and service delivery across what are the levels of service people should explain, depending on where they are located, rather than having an umbrella service level for everybody. And then one of the most critical things that which everybody is battling with at the sector in the moment is institutional framework for sanitation. Who is responsible for what? Sanitation is scattered across various institutions in almost all the African countries. Can we try and ratify that and let the policy clarify who does what? And then there's also a very important aspect of cost recovery. How do we recover cost, and what cost do we recover? We would not expect to recover the full cost of providing sanitation services from the users, because we don't do that in water supply. The capital cost, for example, it's huge most times that we don't expect to get off, but at least the operational cost day to day should be enough, should be recovered enough to pay the service providers. And then the next one is monitoring and reporting. We need to actually have a monitoring system. We need to have a system that monitors and reports, and then we go back and review the policy and see, is it still doing what we wanted it to do? Do we have to have one policy for 10 years? Or do we say every 3 years we look at this, review it, and see if it needs to be revised or things added to it? And then one of the things that's also very critical for sanitation, mainly because of the kind of product we're dealing with, is regulation. Regulation is really crucial. And one of the things is, what do we actually regulate in sanitation? And I think the best way to look at it is to look at it through the value chain. Every component of the value chain has something that needs to be regulated and needs to be done clearly and carefully because of the human physics, the nature of the human physics. We are trying at the moment to regulate water supply, the utility supplies in Africa. I think the same careful thought should be given to sanitation, to look at how do we regulate it, who regulates what and at what stage, and to clarify that. Then the next thing is that I think this cartoon kind of clarifies it. Okay, everybody's talking about having a policy, and the guys come and done the policy and said, yeah, we have a very fantastic policy now. And the poor boy is living in this slum with all the rubbish around and all the physics going, yeah, right, correct. And then that afterward, what do I do now? I think we need to ensure that after the policy is done, that the decision makers are not just writing it down on paper, but they truly understand what is FSM, why do we need non-sewer sanitation and fecal sludge management. There's also need for adequate capacity to actually develop implementation plans. Because from what I've seen so far interacting with some decision makers in Africa and a lot of implementers is that sometimes it's not that they don't want to do non-sewer sanitation or they don't want to work with it, it's that they don't know how and what to do. And also, their people surrounding them, their technical experts, also are struggling a bit when it comes to non-sewage sanitation and fecal sludge management. Because sanitary engineering teaches you wastewater management, basically, and does not teach you what do you do with physics inside a pit latrine. So it's things like that. How do we develop plans, a more comprehensive plan? How do we build capacity within the decision makers and within their advisors to be able to do that? If we are able to have that capacity, then it's then supports with the strategies and plans that actually reflect the actual reality in the place where people are. So that when we go for development partners funding, we don't ask for loans to build, again, wastewater treatment plants. When there's no population to use it, it won't even function in the end. And then the next one is the development partners also need to be willing to support fecal sludge management. We need to get to a stage with clear advocacy and with clear sensitization to say, this population you're going to give a grant or a loan to this government is giving you a loan application for $10 million to build a wastewater treatment plant in a population where they use 2% of them can only be served. Can you look at that again? We need to get to the stage where development partners who are funding sanitation get a loan application and say, okay, guys, you need to go back and look at this again. Justify why this is the most appropriate thing for your population. And I think before we leave, there are a few questions that we need to consider. Again, sorry I asked you a question, and I'm answering it again with a question. The first one is that, do we actually have sufficient capacity within the sector to develop the FSM policy? Are there development partners willing to support this investment in Africa? And then do we have existing regulators to actually regulate FSM? And is advocacy enough? Should we just advocate, or should we get to a stage where we actually do with our government and say, okay, enough of this. It's now you take the carrot and you don't, I'll give you the stick from the back. So can we consider the two? How does it work? And so the next one is that AMCAO is currently working with WHO GLAS and CWSC, looking at developing an African sanitation policy guideline. And the reason being that there's demand in the continent to look at, we want to develop a more comprehensive guideline. We hear what you're saying, but how do we do that? And that we are hoping that this guideline, when it's completed by 2020, would enable African governments to understand the process for developing a sanitation policy that is inclusive, which means it has FSM policy in it. It actually targets its population. It will provide a guideline and the framework it will need to be able to develop that policy. And what we want to see in the end is that we don't get to where these kids lying down here come to our age, and they're still standing on the stage talking to kids this age about doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I introduce the next speaker, I'd just like to ask the volunteers to please bring the headsets in case there are colleagues who are sitting and forgot to pick them up, because the next talk is going to be presented in French. So if you forgot to go get the headset, just raise your hand and volunteers will quickly bring them in. Yeah, there is indeed some people who need them. Nevertheless, I'll go ahead. Nevertheless, I'll go ahead and introduce our next speaker, who is Mr. So. He is the Director General for VECAS and also the President for the Pan-African MTS Association. And he will be talking to us about what he feels should be the role of MTS in the sanitation value chain. The floor is yours, DG.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Ibra Sow et je suis le président de l'Association des vidangeurs du Sénégal. J'ai été nommé récemment, tout fraîchement, le président de l'Association panafricaine des acteurs de l'assainissement d'Afrique. Ça veut dire tout simplement le président de l'Association des vidangeurs africains. J'aimerais vous présenter aujourd'hui le rôle d'un vidangeur dans le développement du secteur de l'assainissement. En somme, voyez-vous, l'absence d'assainissement est appropriée à plus de 600 millions de personnes, dont 200 millions urbains. Et ce qui défecte dans la nature tourne aux environs de 230 millions, dont 30 millions urbains. C'est un impact considérable en tant que condition de vie sur l'environnement et sur l'économie. Voilà la chaîne de valeur. Le problème, c'est que les gens ne communiquent pas. Il y a un manque de communication entre ce qui est le concept des fosses. Par exemple, moi, vidangeur, je ne connais pas ce qui fabrique ces fosses-là. Les plombiers, les maçons qui le font. Je devrais les connaître et travailler avec eux et savoir exactement qu'ils savent quel est mon problème pour vidanger ces fosses-là. Ça, c'est un. Deuxièmement, moi qui suis vidangeur, pour les transporter et les amener au niveau du traitement. Peut-être le cas du Sénégal, ils ont pris des avancements, ils ont eu l'expérience quand même de communiquer ensemble, mais quand même, dans certains pays, c'est la catastrophe. Les gens ne considèrent pas, en somme, je ne dirais pas exclusivement, mais les gens ne considèrent pas les vidangeurs. C'est la faute d'accord aux vidangeurs, mais aussi, il y a une petite responsabilité, n'est-ce pas, de ceux qui gèrent, ceux qui doivent gérer le site de dépotage. Donc, voyez-vous, le défi maintenant de la vidange en Afrique, c'est quand même de faire à ce que ce genre de pratique puisse être éradiqué. Ça sera extrêmement difficile parce que tout simplement, dans nos quartiers, il y a de ces quartiers qui sont inaccessibles par les camions. Comment faire pour vidanger ces fosses-là? Il y a des toilettes qui ne sont pas du tout adaptées, n'est-ce pas? Et des toilettes aussi inaccessibles, des toilettes qui sont derrière des maisons, il faut pratiquement 40 mètres, 50 mètres pour pouvoir les vidanger. La tuyauterie ne suffira pas pour atteindre, n'est-ce pas, la fosse. Et il y a aussi la mauvaise utilisation des toilettes qui mettent du n'importe quoi là-dedans, des déchets, des ordures ménagères, des déchets solides et autres qui fait quand même pour vidanger ces fosses-là, c'est extrêmement difficile. Seulement, il y a les vidangeurs manuels commencent à s'organiser petit à petit. Le cas du Sénégal, ils se sont regroupés et ont bénéficié de ce qu'on appelle les fonds de garantie, des fonds mis en place, n'est-ce pas, pour permettre aux vidangeurs de renouveler leur parc automobile. Et les vidangeurs manuels en ont profité, n'est-ce pas, pour se regrouper, former un groupement et avoir un camion. Et Dieu merci, c'est les meilleurs payeurs de ce fonds de garantie. Voilà la situation en Afrique aujourd'hui. Les camions, ce camion blanc au milieu, le camion blanc là, c'est un camion qui date de 1961. Il a plus d'âge que moi. Moi, je suis de 65. Les camions en Afrique, c'est comme ça. C'est des camions de 55 ans, 65 ans. Comment voulez-vous qu'un camion de 60 ans, 50 ans puisse être rentable? Non. Chaque 5 mètres, il tombe en panne. Il faut renouveler. Les pièces sont introuvables maintenant parce que les fabricants ne fabriquent plus ce genre de camions. Et les pièces même que vous trouvez sur place sont inadaptées. Donc ce camion-là, il n'est pas rentable. Alors, le vidangeur, il dit qu'il ne s'en sort pas, il est obligé de facturer un peu plus, n'est-ce pas, pour s'en sortir. Et là, au détriment de qui? De la populace. Il y a peu de pays qui ont des stations de gestion de bouts de vidange. Peu de pays. On peut les compter sur les bouts de doigts. C'est sûr, si on a à compter les pays en Afrique qui ont des stations de déportage en bonne et due forme, ça ne va pas atteindre les 10, ou bien juste 10. Sur combien de pays? Je vous laisse désirer. Regardez la situation actuelle. La plupart de nos pays de nos villes, c'est comme ça qu'ils font. Le camion là, qui déporte ici, ça va directement à la mer. Le monsieur au Mali m'avait posé la question à savoir que lui, il avait dépassé quelque part un camion qui dépotait dans la rivière et en aval, il trouvait des gosses, des jeunes garçons qui baignaient, n'est-ce pas, dans cette rivière-là. Quelle est la solution? Je vous pose la question, quelle est la solution? Il faut une politique qui vise à éradiquer ce genre de fléau. Cette politique, c'est de mettre sur pied des ouvrages qui permettent à ce que ceux-ci ne se produisent plus. Les politiques, aujourd'hui, nos jours, c'est comme le monsieur qui va là-bas défarquer à l'air libre alors qu'il a un téléphone qui coûte $1000 et il défarque à l'air libre. Ça veut dire tout simplement que le téléphone qu'il a à sa main vaut plus qu'une toilette. Il préfère acheter cette toilette-là il préfère acheter ce téléphone-là que d'aller défarquer, n'est-ce pas, dans une toilette décente. Il ne le fait pas. C'est exactement ce que font nos États. Au lieu de mettre sur pied des ouvrages d'assainissement en bonne due forme, l'argent là est envoyé ailleurs, disant qu'on n'a pas les moyens. Ah si, les moyens sont là. Désolé. Rôle du vidangeur maintenant. Quel est le rôle du vidangeur? Qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire? On doit intégrer les instances de décision de l'assainissement. Mais pour cela, le vidangeur, dans certains pays, est très mal vu parce qu'il présente mal. Il est là, répugnant, portant des tenues, n'est-ce pas, qui sont sous fesses, avec des sandales, avec un t-shirt. Il ne se lave pas, il est mal fagoté, mais subitement, c'est un répugnant. On ne peut pas l'accepter. On dit que lui, là, ce qu'il est en train de transporter, là, c'est exactement ce qu'il reflète. Certainement, il est imbibé de boue. On ne le reçoit pas. Même s'il demande à boire, on cherche un pot qui a été jeté là-bas, on récupère, on met de l'eau, on lui donne. Et on ne lui donne jamais un verre d'eau décent. Non. Parce qu'il présente mal. Mais le vidangeur qui présente comme ce monsieur qui est là, avec casque, tenue, EPI, tout, s'il se présente, il va être accueilli. Donc, le vidangeur, à force d'être rejeté, finalement, il n'a plus l'audace d'aller vers l'autorité. Parce que si le ménage rejette le vidangeur, l'autorité va faire pire même, va le chasser. La première fois que je me suis rendu à l'ONAS, c'était en 1997, il venait juste de créer cette instance-là, on m'a pratiquement considéré, non, ce que vous faites là, ce n'est pas de l'assainissement. Cherchez autre chose, appelez-le autre chose, mais ce n'est pas de l'assainissement. Ce n'est que 4 ans ou 5 ans après, quand les étudiants sont revenus et ont eu à étudier, à avoir leur thèse sur l'assainissement autonome, que ces gens-là leur expliquaient que non, ce n'est pas ça. C'est là qu'ils ont commencé à nous accepter. Et jusqu'à récemment, en 2005-2006, il y avait encore des récalcitrants, des gens qui n'ont pas quand même accepté. Maintenant que les résultats sont là, qu'ils ont tout délégué aux vidangeurs sénégalais. Les stations, toute la chaîne de valeur, c'est délégué. Parce que les résultats qu'ils ont obtenus quand eux, ils le géraient, c'était plus ou moins... ça ne passait pas. C'était un résultat négatif. Ils ne s'en sortaient pas. Quand ils ont passé au privé, ils s'en sortent. Maintenant, ils gagnent beaucoup d'argent à travers les stations de bouée de vidange parce que tout simplement, ils ont délégué au privé. Donc, travailler avec les décideurs pour intéresser davantage les banques commerciales. Ces décideurs-là doivent inciter les banques et bien former les vidangeurs à ce qu'ils présentent bien, n'est-ce pas? Je viens de recevoir d'une banque par l'aide de Washfin, qui est là, je les remercie au passage, n'est-ce pas, il me demandera la somme de 700 millions de francs CFA, n'est-ce pas, tout simplement parce que j'ai domicilié quelques marchés chez eux. Il me donne 700 millions de francs CFA, n'est-ce pas, pour m'accompagner. Ça veut dire tout simplement que il y a quelqu'un qui est derrière, qui a poussé à ce que cette banque-là puisse me donner cet argent-là parce qu'on les a convaincus que c'est un porteur, c'est un secteur porteur. Donc, se positionner en porteur de projet, construction ou exploitation de boues de vidange. Se formaliser, ce que je venais de dire tout à l'heure, se former, s'autoréguler, s'équiper, se fournir d'un service de qualité. Ne pas avoir ces camions locuteux qui sentent pratiquement avant d'arriver à la station, ils perdent la moitié de leur chargement. Chacun bouche les narines, on ferme les yeux pour ne pas voir cette façon de faire qui n'est pas du tout confortable. Ce qu'il faut, c'est mettre des uniformes très nice, très clean, comme je suis aujourd'hui, comme ça, en costume. Vous me voyez, vous dites que ce monsieur-là est peut-être le ministre. Non, je n'ai même pas obtenu mon diplôme de fin d'études moyennes. Donc, aussi, il faudra diversifier les activités. Ne pas dire, surtout dans les zones où la vidange n'est pas aussi fréquente que ça, diversifier les activités n'est pas du tout simplement que moi, je me limite à la vidange. Je sais ce que je sais faire, c'est la vidange, je me limite à la vidange. Le jour où ce qui est arrivé aux Tchadiens vous arrive, vous allez savoir que se limiter tout simplement de la vidange n'est pas du tout recommandé. Parce que eux, quand il pleut, ils prennent des chargements, ils traînent avec eux une semaine durant sans pourtant le dépoter. Parce que les routes, les chemins, les pistes qui mènent vers les dépotages sauvages que vous voyez, je vous ai présenté tout à l'heure, seront impraticables. Donc, tu attends à ce que la pluie, n'est-ce pas, s'achève, les routes s'achèvent, que tu puisses dépoter. Donc, le rôle du vidangeur, toujours, c'est alerter, informer, sensibiliser les usagers, n'est-ce pas, des services d'assainissement pour promotion de meilleures pratiques. Aussi, il faut s'approprier des projets réussis. Il ne faut pas recréer la roue. Il y a quelque chose, quelque part, où ça passe, ça marche très bien. Recopier là où ça marche très bien, chercher ce qui marche le plus et quand même rajouter quelque chose pour pouvoir s'en sortir, adaptez-le à votre ville. C'est mieux. Le métier de l'assainissement, de vidangeur, nourrit son homme, l'enrichit même. Seule l'institutionnalisation, c'est-à-dire le partenariat public, est gage succès de l'assainissement autonome. Là où il y a les partenariats public-privé, ça marche très bien. Le Niger, quand ils ont eu leur station, c'est la plus grande station, n'est-ce pas, de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, quand ils l'ont eu, ils n'ont pas hésité. Ils ont dit, on fait exactement comme le Sénégal. Nous, on saute l'étape de l'expérimentation. On passe directement au vidangeur, qui fait l'affaire des vidangeurs, mais aussi qui fait l'affaire du public, qui s'en sort largement. L'organisation, c'est-à-dire il faut s'organiser en association, n'est-ce pas, des acteurs. Dans chaque pays, il faut quand même qu'il y ait l'organisation des acteurs de l'assainissement. Ça, c'est pratiquement impératif. Voilà, le monsieur que vous voyez en blanc, qui marche à côté de quelqu'un de très grand, c'est le président de notre pays. Il s'appelle Macky Sall. Et le monsieur qui est là à ses côtés, c'est le vidangeur qui avait été rejeté de l'ONAS à l'époque. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, DG. And our third speaker, before we're going to move to the panel conversation, is Ms. Chan, who is from TUV SUD. It's a multinational company, but she is based in Singapore, and she'll explain what the company is all about. And she'll be talking to us about what she feels should be with regards to testing, inspection, and certification as we develop this FSM industry. Thank you, Ms. Chan.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the speech, Imra. It was very, very moving and very inspiring. So the topic I'm going to be talking about for the next 10 to 15 minutes is not the most exciting and awakening topic, and some people like it, some people don't. But it is important. So what I want to share with you is the role of standards and technology certification platform in FSM application. So to start with, I want to share with you the principles of international standards. So having myself and my team develop 2 international standards, one of the great things about international standards is that it's impartial and it's based on consensus. It is transparent and is open to national bodies to send members to participate in the standard development. It is also effective and relevant, so usually standards are developed to address regulatory and market needs, scientific and technology developments. And also, international standards has certain coherence to it. So for people who have participated in developing ISO standards, you would know that you have the kind of assurance that the standards have gone through many rounds of comments, and also these comments are inputs given by different stakeholders of different expert groups. And we come to a consensus that this is probably the best method or best guidelines, and that's how standards are set. And the best thing about international standards is that it creates a platform to facilitate discussion from different stakeholders. From the recent standard development I had the chance to be involved in, we had many African country participating members, and from different parts around the world, but especially from the African continent. And this ISO standards really create a platform for everybody to come together to share their experiences and the challenges they're facing in the industry. So having introduced the principle of international standards, so the ISO standards do have several standards that touch on water and sanitation. But unfortunately, most of these standards are related to water and wastewater treatment. So, and as Emeka mentioned earlier on, there are very, very little standards or regulations that touch on non-sewer sanitation or on-site sanitation services. But there are 3 standards I'd like to bring your attention to. So the ISO standards in focus is the ISO 24521. I'm sure some of you are already familiar with that. The ISO 30500, which was published last year in October. And the ISO community draft, this is still being in development at this moment, is CD 31800. All these 3 standards actually apply to non-sewer sanitation systems. So ISO 24521 is a standard for the guideline, is actually guidelines for management of on-site domestic wastewater services. So it is a management service standard. And ISO 30500 and ISO 31800 is a safety and performance standard. So these 2 standards are different from ISO 24521 because it's a product standard. It specifies product specs and also output requirements for you to meet to make sure whatever product that's coming out from your system is 100% safe. And how does that look in the whole sanitation value chain? And as earlier, what Emeka has mentioned, that regulation along the sanitation value chain is key. But where do we regulate and how do we regulate? And that's something that we are still trying to develop as a community. Because in the past, wastewater treatment plants has always been the social norm. But most people are actually not being served by the wastewater treatment plant. So on the sanitation value chain, on non-sewer sanitation, so the ISO 30500 actually cover on-site treatment unit for a single toilet system, without having the output being emptied and transport for further treatment. So if your treatment unit has to do that, then you fall outside the scope of ISO 30500. And this standard that's currently being developed is for treatment unit, for treatment plant. And so imagine a wastewater treatment plant downsized, but it's not connected to sewer. That is what the standard is for off-the-grid, prefabricated treatment plants that the peak emptier is supposed to bring all the fecal sludge to this place to treat. So that's what the ISO 31800 is for. And how ISO 24521 plays a role in this whole sanitation value chain, it actually talks about, it comes from the perspective of users and also from operators. And it talks about operation and maintenance, and talks about the safely managed sanitation services. And to give you just a little bit more details, so ISO 30500 and ISO CD 31800, these are performance requirements of the system, and they are based on solid discharge, liquid discharge, odor, air emission, and noise emission. So in this standard, they have requirements that you have to meet certain parameters and pass all the requirements to be able to qualify for this standard. And in addition, they also contain criteria for safety, for functionality, for usability, reliability, resource recovery, energy independent, and prefabricated. So indeed, for units to meet this standard is not easy, it's challenging, because these standards are for innovative sanitation solutions. As earlier we had shared before, there are many different options in the past that has come in and out of fashion. Pit latrines, single unit pit latrines, container-based system. So, and households have very difficult, they quite often are faced with the challenges of which system would be suitable for my household. But what these standards are written for toilet sanitation system, these standards are written for sanitation system that make sure that whatever goes into your system, your toilet or the treatment unit, whatever comes out is 100% pathogen-free, 100% pathogen-free, which means, you shouldn't, but which means if someone is going to touch the output coming out from this system, you shouldn't be infected at all. You can actually even just dispose it. And this is the key requirements stated in these two standards. And for ISO 24521, as I said before, this standard is actually a management standard. The guidelines, they give you guidelines on how the requirements are given for the protection of users and operators, starting from collection, transport, treatment, disposal, and reuse. They also give you guidelines on how do you operate and maintain such systems. And they also give you guidelines on management of on-site system from a risk management point of view, environmental management, and finance and assess sustainability. And really, I think the questions really boils down to what is the role of standards in the FSM application? So on a country level, a lot of countries are trying to set regulation, guidelines, and user manuals for service operators, for pit latrines and tiers. People are struggling to find what is the best practice, how should we do it? And as mentioned earlier, MCAL is actually trying to do something in this area for the countries in Africa, trying to find best practices. And for service providers, for pit latrine emptiers, for them, their concerns are safety. How can I do this in a safe manner without getting infected, without having to look dirty, with no dignity in going to do my job? And for manufacturers and for manufacturers, and also manufacturers with innovative technologies. How do standards help them? So I can't promise that standards will solve all the questions and all the problems all the challenges that we're facing along the sanitation value chain. But what ISO standards can do is to harness all this knowledge that has come through to develop within these standards, and harness all this knowledge to put into best practices that countries can try to adopt and try to introduce into their policies, or maybe even just try to benchmark to see against their national regulation, how far off are we from this international standard. The good thing about an international standard is that when we have a platform where everybody has the same language, talking in the same language, it's easier. It's easier for manufacturers to export their products. When they see an ISO certification on the product, you kind of know that it meets certain level of international agreement, international standards. And I'm going to share with you one of the conversations I had this week, with a lady from Kenya. She told me that she was trying to import a honeysuckle, a pea emptier into Kenya, and it was stuck in a custom for a long time because this item, this machinery came into the country. There's no standard, there's no marking. They don't know what this is. This weird-looking thing it's called honeysuckle, but it doesn't really look like one. And so it was stuck in the immigration for a long time. And she knew for some other FSM practitioners trying to import new technology or bring in other innovative solutions that they heard it actually worked in other countries to this country. But it won't clear the custom because there's no certification and we don't know what this product is. There's no manual. So this is one of the things that ISO standards can help with manufacturers to break into market, to bring a product to another country for testing. And also at the same time, how international standards can help with policy makers. Like I said before, many countries are trying to do the same thing, trying to do the right thing. But just to streamline it, we have ISO standards that have gone through many rounds of vetting by experts. You can take that from a start. We actually need willing national people to adopt such standards, hopefully into their policy, into the regulations, so that we can actually see things to start moving along. And without this baseline, it's really hard to compare and also to benchmark where is the norm, what is good enough. It's really hard to tell. So beside international standards, once we have standards, the other thing we need to start seeing is of course, to see the certification of such standards. And one of the work that we actually started to do is to set up certification testing centers. And what this means is that we're not expecting people to be able to meet the standard at the first go, because these are new standards and we're talking about a relatively new technology or industry trying to meet these standards. We set up certification testing centers in Durban, South Africa, starting soon in China and in India, and of course coming from Singapore, we have the facilities to do that. So what we have been doing the past year is to work with partners, with their systems. We ask them, hey, do you want to, test your system to see where your system is at in terms of safety, in terms of performance, according to standard. Let us help you with that. And so far, we've done validation testing in Durban, and I think some of you might be doing a field trip to Durban right after this conference. It would be a very good place for you to have a feel about what's actually going on with the standards and also the testing centers. So, in conclusion, the role of ISO standard is FSM application. It actually saves a lot of time and money. Come and talk to any one of us who have been involved with setting ISO standards. We are happy to share the knowledge, the best practices. And really for ISO standards to work, awareness rising, capacity building, and local adaptation is still required. And adoption of non-traditional sanitation technologies, innovative technology solutions, could benefit from standards-driven approach. And the next step is what's next. So for tomorrow, we are having a ISO, a standards workshop. Please speak to your national standards body or NC. And this half-a-day workshop, we have invited speakers from SAPS, from TUSUD, and also from Senegal. We want to share with you so Senegal and South Africa are adopting the standards within the country. And also, I know that China is doing the same as well. I said that for China, it's a 2-year process because they need to translate the document and make it into the regulation. And Nepal is also adopting ISO 24521 into their country policies as well. So come and speak to us. We do have contacts, and we have national bodies that we know are adopting these policies and stands for their country. And the other thing I would like to propose as a way forward is also perhaps for the FSM Alliance group that which Dulai announced during the plenary in the keynote on the first day, is to set up a subgroup for standards and regulation, because standards and regulation is so important to facilitate, to develop policy, to develop guidelines. And I think, as a way forward, we could set up a subgroup in the FSM Alliance for standards. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
You can just go to the... Okay, thank you very much. I would like to call up on stage again Dr. Godfrey and Mr. So. And while they are coming up on stage, also introduce our moderator who's going to be having a conversation with them. She is Ms. Diao, who is the Director of BODA from the West African region. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Fatoumata Diao. I've been introduced already. Happy to welcome again our panelists and ask them a few questions. We will probably, Mr. So? I will ask you a number of questions. We will try to keep a track of time. I'd like to please have the time enlisted on the panel. So while we wait for the time to be put up, we only have 10 minutes left, unfortunately, but we will make the best use of it. I will go and ask a few questions and keep myself to probably a series of 3 questions and hopefully have everybody answer quickly so we can get some information across to our audience. All of you are naturally working on very, very innovative approaches to the work you do in the FSM industry. How are you actually, how are you taking forward this innovation? How are you pushing it through the industry, each at your level? Who would like to take the answer first?
I can start.
Please.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, so the standard that we develop is for innovative sanitation solutions, and how we're bringing this forward is actually by describing what is not accepted, and what is not accepted is that things that comes out from the social norm, what we have currently, the solution is not acceptable, because the current practice that we have is not safe. The pathogens are not cute. Pit emptiers, pit latrines, dislodging, the whole thing is not safe. So we need to change that. And one of the ways that we could change that is by introducing new technology and also maybe automate a few things like maybe preempting. But from our side, from what we can do is to introduce standards so that people have a baseline, have a benchmark to know that this is acceptable and this is good, and we should start from here, not accept what's below here. And I think that's what is needed if you want to bring innovation to the sector.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. So, would you like to take the answer, please? And I can formulate the question in French again, maybe for you. Vos approches innovatives, en fait, comment est-ce que vos approches innovatives contribuent à développer aussi bien la régulation que le développement du secteur privé, du secteur de l'assainissement?
Merci beaucoup, Madame Dion. Je pense que du côté de mon pays, qui est le Sénégal, ils ont beaucoup avancé, ils ont mis sur place, n'est-ce pas, la chaîne de valeur. C'est qu'aujourd'hui, on a l'omniprocesseur qui fait de matière fécale, n'est-ce pas, de l'électricité, des cendres et aussi de l'eau. Même cette eau est potable, pas mal parmi nous l'ont bu. Sur ce, nous remercions au passage la Fondation Bill et Melinda Gates et aussi l'ONAS, n'est-ce pas, qui ont eu à mettre en place ce processus. Seulement, je pense qu'on doit revoir un peu quand même les instances institutionnelles pour pouvoir quand même permettre aux gouvernants, n'est-ce pas, de déléguer certaines règles, certains droits. Par exemple, il y a le maire du Congo que j'ai eu à intercepter pour lui demander est-ce que si, par exemple, moi j'avais les moyens de venir chez vous pour mettre une station, est-ce que vous l'aurez accepté? Est-ce que vous pouvez quand même porter, n'est-ce pas, cette demande au niveau de votre gouvernement pour qu'il s'engage? Parce que ma banque me demande l'engagement du gouvernement. Elle m'a répondu que ce n'était pas possible parce qu'elle ne pouvait pas le faire. Alors ça, c'est des problèmes. L'argent est là, la faisabilité est là, mais il y a quelque chose qui bloque. C'est quelque chose qui bloque qu'on doit régler dans les meilleurs délais. Merci.
Merci, M. So. Dr. Godfrey? I will reformulate the question. How is your approach, your innovative approach, helping to fully help contribute to privatize the sector faster and further by way of regulation?
Yeah, I think one of the key things that having a very clear sanitation policy, an inclusive policy would help do is to give that kind of authority and guidance to who should participate in sanitation, including the private sector, what their roles will be, and to what standards that will get to. With all these innovative technologies that is going around and all the standards that are being set, I think the ongoing African Sanitation Policy Guideline, it's a very good platform to spread that forward to African countries. Because in the process of the development of the sanitation guideline, it will be very consultative, meaning that the 55 member states would have a chance to have an input into that guideline. And I think it will be an opportunity to kind of scale up all the new standards and all the good practices that are already coming out from various African countries and emphasize the role of learning from other countries, what is happening, to push it forward to African governments to be able to kind of respond to this question, would your government do this? And then we get to the stage where we say, yes, my government can, because we're developing a new policy that will be more inclusive.
Thank you, Dr. Godfrey. I will now go on to a second set of questions for everyone, and I will reformulate in French for Mr. So. So you're all pioneers in your own right, in your sectors, in your activities, and you come across information always telling you that there's novel technology that's here to eliminate pathogens as well in the sludge as in the feces. How is your work helping to bridge this information that you're taking from the industry, bridge it to the business that you're working in back home. Je vais reformuler la question pour vous tout à l'heure, Monsieur Sow, je vais le faire immédiatement. Vous êtes tous des pionniers dans votre secteur et vous rencontrez à chaque fois des informations qui vous disent, d'accord, il y a des technologies qui peuvent éliminer les pathogènes, aussi bien dans les bouts de vidange que dans les excréta. Et lorsque vous travaillez, comment vous arrivez à établir le pont entre ces informations que vous collectez à l'extérieur, à travers l'industrie, et comment vous établissez le pont avec les entreprises et le secteur privé dans lequel vous travaillez, et en fait, comment vous établissez le lien entre les différents acteurs. Ms. Chan, please.
Okay, thank you. So, because I'm coming from a private sector perspective, indeed, through the testing that we've been doing, the validation testing we've been doing at the test centers, according to the standard, and these are innovative technologies. How we contributing back is to first from a TIC company. So TUSU is a testing inspection certification company. We have years of experience, colleagues with years of experience to know how to do testing and certification, carry out test protocols properly. And when we go in the field to test with our partners, the prescribed methods in the standards are still pretty new because those two standards were actually, they are very forward-looking standards. It's almost for technologies that are not quite out in the market yet. And that proves a challenge, a real challenge, because then how do you know the standard is sound? How do you know it's implementable? It's great that a group of experts is in the ISO room and convene and talk about their different ideas and how set the threshold. But until we actually validate in the field with our partners, we don't actually know whether this standard is actually achievable or not. And there's really no point to develop a standard that people either you can meet it too easily, everybody passes great, and then whatever comes out from the treatment unit is still not safe, or the standard is too difficult, it's too challenging. So in the past year and so, we really have been working with our partners in Kombaito, in Durban, and also a commercial toilet that we bought off the shelf to test for such innovative technology and whether they meet the pathogen queue. So we give feedback, from the testing, we give feedback to our partners, and from there, they could improve on the system. Maybe they need to change some part of the system to meet those criteria. So that's where we're.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tian. Monsieur Sow.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Je pense que on a toujours demandé à ce qu'on encourage la recherche. C'est la recherche qui a fait à ce qu'on ait un omniprocesseur à Dakar, à ce qu'on ait l'omni-ingesteur qu'on est en train, n'est-ce pas, de mettre en œuvre, qui va être présenté tout à l'heure, ça veut dire en domaine, n'est-ce pas, de nouvelles technologies. C'est ça qu'il faut. Madame Faye, qui est là présente, notre vice-présidente de l'Association des vidangeurs du Sénégal, nous a payé des billets d'avion, moi et le secrétaire général, un jour, n'est-ce pas, pour aller voir des nouvelles technologies en Italie. On est allé, on a vu une station où on ne soupçonnait pas que là où nous sommes, il y avait une station, parce qu'on l'a mis dans un terrain de golf. C'était inodore. Et le produit qui sortait était incolore. On ne pouvait pas savoir si, par exemple, c'était des eaux qui sont traitées, qui étaient là en train d'arroser le terrain de golf. Quand on est venu, on a pris toute la documentation qu'on a remise aux autorités. Bon, peut-être que c'est tombé dans de mauvaises mains, mais quand même, ça n'a pas abouti et on ne nous a pas fait quand même retour comme quoi, voilà ce qu'il en est. Mais quand même, je dis bien que c'est la recherche qu'il faudra encourager davantage pour quand même avoir des résultats dans ce sens.
Merci, Monsieur Sow. Dr. Godfrey?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we're now beginning to look at standards when it comes to non-sewage sanitation. Because it's such a complex product that does not just involve the main product itself, but also involves what the user interface of those products and what comes out. So we're not just looking at the pathogen levels of what, but actually how do the users feel about using it, and how do those who are providing the services feel about providing those services. Because if we are to refer to standards when you provide a policy or when you're writing a policy guideline, we need to be sure that that standard we're providing is not just on the product, but on the, both also the user and the service providers interface with those products before. But I think it's a very good timing that all these are happening now, but when the African Sanitation Policy Guideline is also in the process of happening, so that we have standards to refer countries to when they are developing their own individual sanitation policies.
Thank you, Dr. Godfrey. I will now, would have liked to move on to the last question related to gender. I'll just throw it out there, though. I'm out of time. But if we had had the time, we would have liked to reflect on gender, but we are unfortunately short of time. And so thank you to the panelists, and thank you to the audience for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you once more for our lovely panelists and our moderator. Job well done. And I would like to just use the opportunity of being on stage for the last time, so you're not going to see me anymore on stage, to thank the organizers for trusting me with directing the plenary sessions until now. There is still another plenary session in the afternoon, but it will not be conducted by myself. And also thank all the speakers that participated in the plenary session, technical session, and those that are still going to be contributing to the technical session. And lastly, thank you for coming, because we wouldn't have these lovely sessions without you. Thank you very much.